Tuangalia Standard, People's Wrath is a big headline there. And they say, Fool's Paradise. President William Ruto has been pleasantly surprised by the reception he has received in Mount Kenya, that he has even added more stops and a few more hours to his itinerary, much to the chagrin of his henchmen, who are having a difficult time facing home crowds. Rais anaambia ni sawa, wewe, sawa. Tunakusikiza. Akisema, sasa ninaleta huyu mwingine aongea hapa na.
Sit down.
Sit down. They are jeered and booed, an indication they could be living on borrowed time. You can read more on that on page 4 of the Standard. Other stories given prominence on this paper. Apologize or quit. That's the Law Society of Kenya telling police IG, Douglas Kanja, over his address. You know what he did? While President Ruto was in Nyeri, akiaddress watu kwa pale kwa juu ya gari, hata polisi IG akatokea akaongea akaadress hiyo rally. Na akasema mmefurahia. Rais ako hapa, arudi tena. Ngawaza yomwambia apologize ama you step down. Yes.
Chagua moja.
Chagua moja. Huwezi fanya hiyo mbili. Leaders eulogize Raila's bodyguards of decades. George Odwor, of course, messages of condolence continue being received following the death of Raila Odinga's longtime aide, George Odwor, this week. Pale juu, fertilizer hiccups threaten country food security. Trump tariffs also gets a mention here. Trump tariffs to erase Kenya trade gains. And matters business, insurance, Jubilee Post, super profit. That's the front page. On the back page of the Standard, they talk about eyes on Kenyan stars as a Grand Slam track kicks off in Kingston, Jamaica. That's the Standard.
Jamaica.
Jamaica. You know, you can't just say Jamaica. Jamaica. It's Jamaica.
People Daily Ruto allies booed the tough ride. President lieutenants faced rough time addressing supporters, exposing simmering hostility after Gachagua removal. Facing Mount Kenya. Kimani Ichung'wah is quoted yesterday saying, "Now, Mr. President, I am not someone who can be easily threatened. As we said, here in Olkalau and the whole of Nyandarua, no one should be scared, and I cannot be scared easily." Well, it was after he was booed anyway. Watu wa Nyandarua wamesema sit down.
Alisema kuna kitu wanasema tudigie derio goya. That one. Alisema hivyo. Hii ni translation.
Jana kuliwaka moto. Na si tu Kimani Ichung'wah, others were also.
Mwangi Kiunjuri also was on the receiving end. Alongside, when I told you, a woman representative of Nyandarua.
Yes. From an elite bodyguard to a trusted Odinga's aide, of course, that is Raila's bodyguard of decades, George Odwor, who died this week. Was it this week or last week?
This week.
This week. LSK leads calls for IG's removal for addressing political rally to make it was he was in uniform. Hiyo sasa imewakasirisha zaidi.
Alafu unajua unaongezea juzi ule mkuu wa military aliongea. Tena ule wa NIS akaongea. Wasema hapana. Kwani
wakisema that must be done within the constitution. Senate National Assembly set to fight over 465 billion shillings. Yes, and that's the People Daily.
All right. Yes, and that story and the controversy surrounding police IG's presence at President William Ruto's rally is the main story on the front page of the Daily Nation. Top security chiefs dance with politics. Red flag, they say. Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja's speech in one of President William Ruto's political rallies in the ongoing tour of Mount Kenya has triggered outrage over perceived dabbling in politics by security chiefs. Now, this follows last week's utterances by Chief of Defense Forces General Charles Kahariri and National Intelligence Service boss Nordin Haji, who warned against the Ruto must go slogan and the rise of divisive politics online, respectively. But the question is, if at all the president was actually on a tour of a different region of this country, let's say Nyanza or Western, would the police IG have done the same? Or are they trying to paint a narrative about, you see, your son, the police IG, you at Mount Kenya.
So you remember they said the president is very, very careful with Mount Kenya region.
So anaenda akionyesha wale watu wako na kazi kubwa from that region. So what police IG said, are you happy to see our president here? Do you want him to come back again? We are still doing our work. Ameambiwa na lawyers boss. Ni kama uelewi kazi yako. And then now they juxtapose it with what happened last week when the Chief of Defense Forces, General Charles Kahariri, made that comment about the must-go chants And the NIS Director General Nuruddin Haji talked about divisive politics, especially on social media, and what is said that national cohesion goes hand in hand with national security. A bodyguard for all seasons, George Odwor, receives quite some prominence on the front page of this paper, the Daily Nation. And 1995 is the year George Odwor moved into Raila Odinga's fold. This was after the death of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, Raila's father, in 1994, because he worked also for Jaramogi Oginga Odinga.
Oh, wow.
Yes. 1995, ulikuwa wapi?
I think I was 2 years old. 2
years? And ulikuwa umetry.
Wewe, koma kabisa. Nakuona sana wewe.
Other stories there. There's a Kenyan woman who has been seized in India with 270 million shillings worth of cocaine. Now, this story ni kama zimekuwa mingi sana. I think this is how people are making money, alafu anasema ni God maze.
Si ni God maze. If you're not caught, ni God maze.
Ukishikwa.
Shitani. The devil lied.
Trump's talking global trade war with tariffs is another story there. And the war in, or the battle for ownership of Nairobi Hospital continues. That's the Daily Nation today.
Taifa Leo, ujanja wa Musalia swali. Wiki chache baada ya kuvunja ANC, washirika wa Mudavadi wafufua chama kinachoaminika kuwa na baraka zake. Kumezwa kwa chama cha Amani National Congress cha mkuu wa mawaziri Musalia Mudavadi na chama cha United Democratic Alliance cha Rais William Ruto kumeibua wasiwasi wa kisiasa, huku baadhi ya wanachama wa zamani wa ANC wakihamia chama kipya. So a new party has been formed. Wataki kumezwa?
So chama ilimezwa. You know, now they've realized they are homeless. Chama ilimezwa, alafu broad based wakakuja. So
they are homeless aje na wako ANC. Si wakubali kumezwa?
Si walimezwa na UDA.
Sasa si waingie huko?
UDA. Hakuna nafasi. Chama ilikuwa ishaja.
Alright, Ishungwa azomewa mbele ya rais, mbunge na wenzake wazomewa na raia wenye hasira, kiongozi wa taifa akitazama. Honestly, hakuna kitu angeza fanya, unabuiwa kwako kwa nyumba. Watu watatu wafariki, oksijeni ikikatika. Watatu waliolazwa hospitalini Mombasa fariki baada ya hitilafu ya oksijeni. Na waandamana Haiti dhidi ya magenge. Raia walaumu serikali kwa kushindwa kudhibiti muungano wa magenge jiji kuu. The top strip of this newspaper, mjeledi wa Trump waangukia Kenya, na Kenya imepata pigo katika biashara yake na Amerika baada ya Rais Trump kutia saini agizo linaloweka ushuru wa 10% kwa bidhaa zote kutoka Kenya. Vilevile wa Kenya 5,000 wakwama Ethiopia, na serikali yasema haina bajeti kurejesha raia wa Kenya 4,900 wanaoishi Ethiopia. Taifa Leo.
Tuangazie the Star, the weekend Star. Trump slaps our coffee, tea, clothes with tariffs. That's a big story there on the front page, and I think this is going to be a main discussion going forward, especially because we're even hosting a number of special economic zones, EPZ, wale wanaunda jeans, alafu zinapelekwa US, mnafikiria alafu inarudi kama mtumba, alafu mnafikiria ati wale wanoma. Zimeshonewa tu hapa. So when it comes to Kenya, how the world reacted. Kenya reacted by saying this, and this is a Foreign Affairs PS Korir Singoe. Ule alipost kitu fake kwa Twitter akaambiwa we. Koma sana. He downplayed the impact of the new tariffs, saying Kenya is still faced one of the lowest rates and was grouped alongside the UK, Egypt, Morocco, Uganda, Tanzania, and Ethiopia. We'll read more on this from the Business Daily, but this is definitely going to change a lot of how we do business with the United States. Inside Ruto's big fight back against ex-DP Gachagua, of course, coverage on the continued trip to the mountain by President William Ruto. Leo inaisha, Tharaka Nithi. And Body by Design owners to spend 2 weeks in prison. Of course, that story about inaitwaje hiyo kazi?
Plastic surgery.
Plastic surgery that went wrong and ended in the unfortunate death of a lady here in Nairobi. Now imeenda kutini. Douglas Kanja yuko pale pia. Unajua, you can actually tell the biggest story. Douglas Kanja. LSK calls Police IG Kanja for addressing Ruto rally in Kieni. Na kwa ile siasa pullouts, will Maraga and Matiang'i split vote help Ruto's 2027 election? A lot of focus on Kisii region, especially with these two big names who are gunning for the presidency of this country. That's a weekend Star. Yes? Kama uko Kenya unaweza nunua na 60 bob, Ukiwa Tanzania 1,000 zitakutosha, Uganda itabidi utafute 2,000. Fresh, independent, different.
Matters business, how mitumba and corruption put Kenya on Trump tax list. Now, 35% tariff on second-hand clothes, graft, and a series of temporary tax waivers to curb rises in domestic food prices are among key trade barriers flagged by the U.S., prompting President Donald Trump to hit Kenya with a 10% reciprocal tariff on Wednesday.
You see, now the problem is with that tariff, because Kenya imposed a 35% tariff on mitumbas, ostensibly to try and prop up the Kenyan textile industry. Tukamushe Rivertex na wengine.
Yeah.
Sasa hiyo ndio inakuja kutukula baadaye. Sema nyewe mnatuzoea sana.
Now, they say Kenya is among 180 countries that were on Monday captured in a report on trade partners whose policies and regulations the U.S. regards as trade barriers. Now, the report by U.S. Trade Representative published on Monday, 2 days before President Trump hit global trading partners with reciprocal tariffs. That is what that report said. In its report, flagged Kenya's tax policy on second-hand clothes, popular as mutumba and clean. Ushasema clean energy. Ushasema these things zinashonewa watu hapa Kenya. Tunadhani zimetoka kule majuu. Mzungu alivaa.
Inashonewa hapa Kenya, inapelekwa majuu, mzungu anavaa, alafu inarudi sasa. Alafu unasema tuko mbele sana.
On the ticker, precious metal dealers race to meet registration deadline. Jubilee raises dividend as profits jump 82.5%. EABL bid to buy out small owners in Uganda falters. And that's the business deal.
So yes, indeed, the discussion around the tariffs imposed by the U.S. will continue being a big debate once we break it down, because even KEPSA are yet to understand just how impactful or the extent of the impact will be on Kenyan exports, especially to the U.S., which is, to be honest, it is our biggest market.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hata our leaders hawajaelewa.
Hata bado hawajaelewa bado.
Korir Singoi has
hata anasema no, tutaumia kitu kidogo. We, tariffs are serious issues. All right. So, once again, today being at the Youth Perspective, Josephat Kamanya, political analyst, will be in studio alongside Nick Mwangi, SG Kenya Hardy Party, and Ken Babu, National Youth Chairperson, DAP.